Hello, here we are, back where we started when I read the first few chapters of Running on the Roof of the World by Jess Butterworth, and we're going to read now the last few chapters as we come to the end of the book. So we left it where Tash and Sam were in the courtyard and they could just spy the Dalai Lama, and she describes him as having a shaved head, big square glasses, a round face, and smiling happy from the inside out. So, chapter 52, Fly. I squeeze Sam's hand. His palm is sweaty. A man with a camera and a huge lens snaps away. People from all over the world walk around the temple on the upper floor. I've been expecting to be the only one. Firstly, says the Dalai Lama, addressing all of us, I'd like to say to each and every one of you, welcome to India. He moves along the line, getting closer. He smiles the kind of smile I want to be around all of the time. I hear him laughing and joking with people further up the line. I imagine our conversation and how we will laugh together too. He reaches Sam, who's holding his hat. The Dalai Lama tries it on, posing for the camera with the ear flaps down. He makes everyone feel better. I bow my head as he approaches. He blesses me with a white scarf. From now on, it will always carry the Dalai Lama's spiritual energy. I think of Mani and pray the blessing reaches him too. Welcome, the Dalai Lama says, laying the scarf around my neck. He looks me in the eyes. They hold all the wisdom I expected. My speech, rehearsed over and over again, vanishes from my head. Did you walk over by yourself? He asks. I nod. Then you must be as strong as a yak. He smiles in admiration. Please, I blurt out, you have to help. My parents are in prison in Tibet. I'm sorry. I can't interfere with matters of that kind, he says with a sympathetic smile. But have hope. It often leads you on unexpected pathways. This wasn't how the conversation was supposed to go. Remember your inner strength, he says, turning to the next person. It was over, so quickly. The Dalai Lama reaches the end of the line and waves goodbye. People clap and cheer. Sam places his good arm on my shoulder. I shake him off and run out of the temple into the crowd outside. I pause and glance up at the snowy mountains. Maybe we can go back. Maybe I can break them out of prison myself. But I know that's impossible, and suddenly I'm lost, with no direction and nothing left to hope for. I want to be high up, away from everyone, back in the mountains. I break away and head up the hill. I hear the click of Sam's feet behind me and quicken my pace. I pass an old man holding his hands behind his back, slowly treading up the hill. I rush past tea shops that sell puffed up bags of crisps and mountain crystals. Reaching the pine forest, I'm finally hidden by the big trees. I press on, leaving the blur of the town behind me. A stray shepherd dog with a fluffy tail and big paws stops and stared at me, cocking his head to the side. I stop and climb up into a tree growing out of the side of the mountain with twisted branches and big leaves. The dog sits by the trunk. I yank the two tattered halves of the snow lion from my pocket and trace Dad's handwriting with my fingertips. My tears drop onto the paper. Sam catches up and leans on the trunk, shaking the tree. The leaves float down to the mossy floor, and I wipe my nose on my sleeve. We'll figure something out, says Sam. We always do. Butterflies flutter all around me, mostly red with yellow spots. A different one lands and spreads its wings on a leaf. It's white, like a faded crumpled page. All over it are brown lines. It looks like a miniature map. It flutters away into the sky, gone too quickly for me to glimpse it again. How will we find our way home, I ask. Remember what the Dalai Lama said, says Sam. You're as strong as a yak. I hug the scarf round my neck. I don't feel strong right now. I feel like a failure. His words remind me of Dad. He wouldn't have expected me to fail. He always said I had the luck of the dragon. His little yak. Wait, I say, straightening my back. I think of the yaks I've known all my life. A symbol of strength, an emblem of my country and my culture. Yaks will fly. The yaks are people. Sam stares at me blankly. The people will fly, I say, smiling. Sam slowly grins. And flying is like doing the impossible or being set free. He watches a butterfly take off into the sky. The prisoners will be set free. We beam at each other for a second, and then we're racing down the hill, leaping over boulders and swerving around a motorbike coming towards us. Chapter 53, Exile. Dawa listens to our theory and agrees with us in an instant. He spends the afternoon gathering supplies. When he's ready, he fills the cupboards with rice and noodles for us and passes me the key to the padlock on the front door. I take his hand. Find them for me, I say. I'll do my best, he says. I promise. I look out over the flat roofs down into the valley, watching him disappear into town. I pace up and down the streets and peer into a cafe crammed with people. Indians, tourists and Tibetans sit drinking tea. Above the counter is a photo of the Dalai Lama next to the pictures of Hindu gods. Hung against the wall is a Tibetan flag, the same one the man on fire held above his head. I gaze around me. All the objects and teachings that we're not allowed to have are on display here in front of me. Shops spill onto the street selling prayer bowls next to the Buddha statues. The Dalai Lama's teachings aren't passed on in secret, but stitched onto wall hangings and sold openly in the shops. I think of the words I used to blurt out that could have got me into trouble. The number of times I whispered Dalai Lama into the wind. Here I can say it and nobody cares. This is what the man on fire wanted, this kind of freedom for Tibet. It takes a few days for me to stop the habit of checking over my shoulder for soldiers. Sam and I soon form a routine. First, I look to the mountains and think of my parents and Dawa, willing them to be safe. Then we stroll through the market and wave at the fruit seller who throws us an apple in return. Afterwards, we walk Bones up the hill and leave him to graze until the evening. The longer we're here, the more I realise how hard it will be to go home. The police will still be hunting for us. Sometimes I look at Sam and I know he's worrying about his dad. Of course I am, says Sam, when I pluck up the courage to ask him about it. But I think he'll know where I am and that I'm safe. I reckon Manny or Dodgy's sister will have told him. I stare at the ground. If I knew I'd be saying goodbye for this long, I'd have done things differently. I wouldn't have borrowed the axe, I say quietly, tearing bits of grass between my fingers. Would you have come with me if you'd known that you couldn't go back? Of course, says Sam, meeting my eyes. But we will go back one day. I'm sure of it. Okay. Chapter 54. Hope. The snow falls a month later. It dusts the ground where we are, but completely covers the peaks. I wake after a bad dream and spot the whiteness immediately. My stomach tenses. There's no way they'll make it over the passes. I pull my blanket up to my nose, feeling empty. We're running low on supplies, said Sam from the kitchen. We'll have to change some of that money into rupees soon. Sam enters and passes me a bowl of porridge. I prop myself up and hold the bowl because it's warm. Nothing will make me hungry right now. We should have heard from Dawa, I say. Not necessarily. Think how long it took us just to get one way. But the snow. He glances up at the mountains and hesitates. Well, I'm not going to go feed Bones by myself. If you're not going, I'm not going. He's got me and he knows it. He stands with his hands in his pockets. I remember my promise to Manny and think of Bones. I swing my legs out of bed and pull on my coats. Once I'm moving, I feel a bit better. The cold air blows against my face and the snowy mountains gleam. This is my favourite time of day to be out before all the traffic. The shops are just opening and people are outside cleaning their glass fronts or unpacking boxes of goods on the roadside. Bode grunts when he sees us, and I bury my face in his fur, breathing in his familiar smell. We lead him up the road to graze. His hooves clip-clop on the tarmac. Bones knows the routes instinctively now, and he speeds up when we reach the verge before the grass. He waits at the top, looking towards the mountains, and I know that he's pining for Eve. The hawks soar above us. On days like this, we go to the temple, and I spin the prayer wheels, remembering the Dalai Lama. I still keep his picture in my pocket, and I reach for it now. How many times do you think they've been spun? Asks Sam. The wheels are worn and faded at the edges where people have touched them. Millions. I think back to when we were on the top of the peaks and how I felt like I could do anything. I take a deep breath and cling on to that feeling with all my might, sending it with prayers to Dad, Mum, Dawa, and the prisoners in the mountains. On the way back, we duck off the main street to avoid the cars and find ourselves in a maze of dark and gloomy back alleyways. I hear a whistle and spin round to look. The whistle brings 1,000 memories flooding back, transporting me through time the way a song does. Coming down the mountain is a shepherd with a flock of sheep and goats. The animals climb on everything, resting their front legs on rocks to get the highest leaves and stick out their long tongues. The shepherd is a short man wearing a brightly patterned hat. There are 3 people with him. I see a flash of red. I shake my head and sigh. Oh, all herders must make that noise. I almost thought it was Manny. I've never seen so many goats all together before. The shepherd whistles again, calling his flock, and I look up to watch the 100 goats and sheep follow him. They don't stick to the path, but spread themselves across the mountain, munching as they go. A woman stumbles, and 2 men rush to help. I squint. I stare at the woman, willing her to look up. She's wearing a red skirt. I glimpse her face. For a second I can't move. I just stare in case they disappear. Mum, I shout, leaning towards them. Dad, I'm straining forwards with all my weight, running like I used to with Sam through the barley fields. It's them. It's really them. An eagle swoops and dives about me. I weave around the sheep. Mum, Dad! I run faster and faster, my heart drumming in my ribcage and my body shaking. My parents look up and see me. Their faces light up. Tash, shouts Dad's deep voice. Tashila! I'm nodding and running and arms outstretched. They hobble towards me, Dawa striding behind them, and I fall into their arms, wrapped in the smell of them and their warmth. Home. I am home. I want to hold on forever to make sure they are real and never let them go again. Chapter 55, the final chapter, Hope. I usher our little group towards Dawa's house. The buildings gleam in the sunlight. I smile at every person we pass. Dad's face looks drawn, but he still has the same sparkling eyes he always had. Sam catches up to us, holding his shoulder. It's really you, he says, smiling and out of breath. They wrap their arms in mine and Sam's, and we walk down the mountain together with beaming smiles. A bell jingles, and I glance at Mum. My yak bell, the one I thought I'd lost, dangles from a chain around her neck. Have you heard anything from my dad? Asks Sam. They shake their heads. No, says Mum, I'm sorry. There's been no news since the village was under lockdown, says Dad. Sam nods. It's just as we'd expect, but it's still hard to hear. We reach the steps leading to Dawa's. I take my mum's hand and lead her through the door. I make steaming cups of buttery tea and carry them out on a tray, then sit cross-legged on the floor beside my parents. What happened? I asked Dad, bursting to find out. How did you get out? Well, as you know, My job in the resistance was to write down a code and deliver it to Dawa and the nomads. He leans back in his chair. I failed the night the Wujin came, but you delivered it to the nomads anyway. Yaks will fly on the 11th of November, I say. Exactly, says Dad. It was the date of the visit from the Chinese minister, the only time the police would be distracted. It was the day the prisoners were to be set free. So it all went to plan, asks Sam. Yes, and it was all thanks to you, don't you see? You set us free. Daddy's beaming. Not only that, says Mum, but we got lost in the mountains. If Dawa hadn't found us, we would never have made it. I smile at Sam and squeeze his hand. We knew the code was important. Where are the other prisoners? I asked. They stopped to rest in a village we passed earlier, says Dawa. Your parents insisted on coming straight here. We had to see you both, says Mum. I sip my butter tea, letting the news sink in. Your dad is the only person in the resistance who knew when the minister was coming, continues Mum, leaning forward and taking my hand. The government kept it secret, so no one could plan any disturbances or protests. Dawa stands and lights 4 incense sticks. The smoke curls upwards, filling the room with the scent of a temple. The resistance has been planning a prison break for some time, says Dad, smiling. You made it happen. It seems so obvious now that I wonder how we didn't figure it out sooner. Suddenly the pain of the journey is gone. Dad grabs my hand and spins me round. I laugh. Mum and Dad look at each other fondly. I did it. I set them free. I look around me for Sam. He's outside with Dawa, leaning over the balcony and quietly staring at the mountains. They glisten under the bright blue sky. He turns and spots me. His hand forms the secret eagle sign. I smile and signal it back to him. I think of the Dalai Lama and remember his words. Hope leads us on unexpected pathways. A hawk soars surrounded by ravens. Mum's hair has come loose and it waves behind her in the breeze drifting through the door. She lifts the yak bell from her neck and smiles with her deep brown eyes. I carried this for you, she says, placing the yak bell over my head, lifting my hair out of the way. It's cold against my skin, and I tuck it under my jumper. I'll give it to Manny when we finally get home. That's the end. Some facts about Tibet before we finish. Tibet is the source of 5 of Asia's largest rivers, providing water for over 1 billion people. In Tibet, only a male yak is called yak. The female yak is called a tree. China's invasion of Tibet began in 1950, and over 100,000 Tibetans have fled their country, risking their lives to live in India, Nepal, and elsewhere. The act of offering oneself as a sacrifice by fire is called self-immolation. Since 2009, there have been over 140 similar man-on-fire protests inside Tibet. And that's the end. Running on the roof of the world. I wonder if Sam will ever go back and see his dad. I wonder if they will ever get back to the village. I hope you enjoyed the story like I did. I love this story because it's a story of a young boy and a young girl coming together, overcoming insurmountable odds because they love their parents and they want to do what's right. And I like it because it's not set in England or Salford or in a place that we're familiar with. It's set in the mountains and in villages and in a town in India. It really teaches you about what life's like in different cultures. So if you see a book like this that's set somewhere else, give it a go. All the books I'd like to take this opportunity to recommend to you are, this is what I would have read next if lockdown was still continuing, A Monster Calls. I know Year 5 have been looking at this, and it's one of my favourite books because it's stories within a story. And the film is really good, but it's not like the book. So I would have read that next. Another book I'd like to recommend to you is The Last Wild. Anybody from Year 4 to Year 6 can read this. It's in the present tense, just like Running on the Roof of the World is, so it's like it's happening now, and it's like the author is talking to you. It's great. And if you like animals and you like the environment, that's one for you as well. And lastly, I don't know if you've seen this on our website, but my friend Lizzie, who I used to work with in my previous school, and my friend Lizzie, she wrote this book, and it's called The Little Wonky Pumpkin, and it's set around Halloween and bonfire night when we have pumpkins. But it's good any time of the year. If you fancy reading a really good book about what it's like to be different and what it's like to be special, that's one for you. Okay, so that's the end of Running on the Roof of the World. At the time of recording, children are going to come back full time in 5 days. We can't wait. We can't wait to see you all. So I won't be doing any more online stories for now, unless we go back into lockdown again. But hopefully I will see you all in 5 days' time every day from next week. All right. So take care of yourself. I've loved sharing that story with you, and hopefully I'll see you soon. Okay. God bless and bye for now.